This is our current version of our MCE or MC Everywhere application. I'm using Google Chrome to test this today. Upon entering your login credentials for the very first time, you're going to be prompted to choose a database to connect to. For most of you, it's just going to be one single database. It'll take a little bit for the application to initially load into the browser. The very first time. After the first time, you'll notice load times significantly increase. When you initially log in for the first time, you're going to see this icon spinning here. This is our sync icon. The way that MCE works is you're able to take the application into a disconnected offline environment. And because of that feature, you're required to sync to gain new information onto the device. And when you make changes, you're going to sync again to pass those changes back to the server. What you're looking at is our home page, which provides a calendar view of work orders assigned to the technician that's logged in. You can change this calendar to either sort by assignment date, or as I'm currently set up, I'm displaying by target date. These navigation arrows will move you forward and backwards through the calendar. This icon here will take you to today's current date. A couple other icons we can see here. This indicates whether or not you are in a connected or offline environment. I'm going to manually disconnect so you can just see what that icon would look like. So this lets you know that you're not connected. You'll also notice that the sync icon has changed and become disabled as well. If you click on any of these work orders, you can view additional work order details. And this is kind of just a snapshot of what's on that work order. We're going to deal with getting into the details of the work order in just a moment. But maybe you want to quickly see the location of the work order or kind of what that priority is. And then if you've got a date that happens to have multiple work orders, you can see this shows that there are 5 work orders on this date. So clicking that will open up and display each of those work orders. If I want to see more details, I can expand that out, see the work order details as well. And then if I want to go to the work order from this calendar screen, I just click this pencil icon, and you can see this has now opened up that work order, and I've got some more details. So we'll go into work order processing as mentioned in a moment. Just wanted to show you some quick navigation process. The back button will take you back to that home page. You've got some other icons down here that take you to the various modules within the system. If I wanted to open up the asset module, I could click this, and this gives us our asset hierarchy. And we'll go into the details of the assets in a moment. This menu button will allow you to navigate back home. I can go into parts from here, or I can go into like our work order module and view the work orders as a list. And then we'll look at that menu pop out once more. So the home will always take you back to the calendar. Here are those same module links. This little icon here is telling you which module you're currently in. And there's some configuration things and some documentation things we'll look at near the end of this demo. When I'm in the system and I'm in a connected environment, we're going to see some icons here that represent and mean different things. This green with the little lock icon tells me this is offline on this device. And typically this filter is always going to be set to assign work orders. That means the logged in technician, these are the work orders that are assigned to me. If I wanted to, I could view all the open work orders that are in the system. You'll notice this icon here has changed. This tells me that this is available online on the server, but not on the device. So if I did want to access that, I could click to edit, and it's going to bring it temporarily into the device so that I can process. Maybe I want to assign that work order to someone else, or maybe I want to assign it to myself and perform something against the tasks on the work order. So when you're in an online environment, you can grab things and bring them onto the device. And I'm going to turn this off for just a moment. So when you're in an offline environment, you'll still have these icons that tells you this is on the server. But if I go to access this, we just end up processing this wheel. It won't grab the information when you're in a disconnected environment. Let's look at some final options we have when we're in this work order list. There is a filter here which will allow you to search by any portion of the work order details. So if I want to look for this door loose work order that I noticed there, I can start searching, and this partial search term will filter for the things that you're looking for. Maybe you know a work order number or a portion of a work order number. You can start to type that in as well, and it'll quickly search for the items that you're looking for. You've got some other features by using this pop-out in the top right corner as well. I can create a service request from the device. I can attach an asset to it. And if I know the procedure, I can also look up and assign a procedure as well. There's a default to assign to self, or we could uncheck that and assign it to another labor record after we've created this record. You can see it's going to provide a temporary work order number until we sync this to the server. A quick note about the sync. When there are changes on the device that need to be sent back to the server, the sync button will change color and turn yellow. That lets you know there's something that needs to be sent to the server. And we can run that. What that's going to do is update that service request with a work order number. And since I assigned it to me, it's going to show up on my work order list as well. Notice when we've finished syncing our changes, the sync indicator goes back to a blue. When we use this pop-out, we've got some other options as well. If you want to use timers, maybe you want to check in and out of a particular location, you've got some options here that'll start automatic timers for you. The expand all and collapse all option opens up additional details. You can open and close those details individually. It gives you location information, gives you some supervisor information, maybe who the initial requester was. So we can collapse that entire list or expand that entire list using these options here. And then the last important feature from this pop-out is you can change the sort order of your work order list at any time. We typically sort by ID, which is the work order number, but maybe you want to group your work orders by asset as a priority. And then you can change the sort from A to Z, Z to A by switching this as well. So now my work order list has changed in terms of the order of the sort. Okay, let's open up a work order. Take a look at some functionality here. So when you're in the summary page of the work order, you can see the asset and the location of the asset. So however far that is in the hierarchy, you'll see all of that here. If I wanted to quickly see that asset record, I could click View. This takes me to the actual asset associated with that work order. I can see the details of the asset. Maybe I want to look at the history, previous work orders for that asset. You've got some quick action items here as well. If we wanted to just quickly indicate that we've responded to this work order, we've received it at a particular time, that's going to lock that into the work order status. You've got some details about the work order, maybe the target date, who's assigned, priority, type of procedure you might use against this work request. When we go to the Tasks tab, we've got some quick check boxes if it's simple tasks, if we just need to mark whether they've completed or failed. If you need to take readings or do any kind of detailed actions against the tasks, we're going to click the pencil icon over on the right, and you can see that opens up some fields for us where we can take some readings against these tasks. So once you're in the task details, you can navigate through the task using these action buttons here. You can see I'm jumping forward to task 20. Here's task 30. So I could take my readings through this detailed view. And then when I'm ready to go back to my task list, I can just hit this back button and it takes me back to my overall list. The cost tab is where we are going to enter labor, parts, or any other potential costs against this work order. And I can enter labor for myself. I can also enter labor for other personnel who maybe are not assigned to this work order. So you've got the ability to do multiple labor entries. We've got the ability to do multiple part entries. And then the other cost is if you have anything that is outside of labor and parts. Maybe you're being reimbursed for travel expenses, those type of things. The status close feature is where we'll go when we're ready to wrap up everything with the work order. This is where I can indicate that I've completed the work, and there's a date and time stamp for that. We can use failure codes as well as solution codes for tracking what's happened against the work order. There are some built-in labor report options. You've also got the ability to manually leave a labor report as well. And you can see now that we've made some updates to the work order, this is turned yellow, indicating we know there's something we're going to need to send back to the server. And the way that that indicator works as well is if we sync from here, it's going to look at everything on the device and sync everything. If you've just got a single item that needs to be transferred, so here's that door loose work order I've been processing. I've got a sync indicator that's popped up here as well. That's telling me that's the actual item where there have been changes. So I can just run the sync from here. It runs a lot faster. It only transfers this information from this work order back to the server instead of having to run the sync for every action item. If you're in an environment where you're going to be receiving multiple assignments throughout the day, if the assignment has been made at the server level, there's no way the mobile user, the MCE user, is going to be aware of that. So we just want to train our staff to get in the habit on a set interval of just coming up and running the sync. That way they're grabbing anything that may have been assigned to them in the last 15, 30 minutes, hour, whatever interval you want to choose that works best for you for that. Okay, let's take a look just quickly back at the asset module. As mentioned, this is the same asset hierarchy that you have in your MRO, your desktop version of the application. If I click on this pencil, that's going to take me into the asset details. You have all of the same tabs and fields that you have in the MRO application. We've got our details here, model, serial number. We've got user-defined fields that are available at this second tab. If you're taking meter readings against your assets, you can see the current readings. If you've got any specifications against your assets, we can see those specifications and also update those values from the MCE application if need be. We looked at this a moment ago, but we can look at all of the work history against this particular asset, and then I can open those work orders from here if I need to. See, this took me to that work order. And then if there are any attachments associated with your records, whether it's work orders, assets, or parts, those attachments come over as well. And you can open those up from within the MCE application. And one last module, we'll look at the parts module. So we've got all of your inventory in the system. You've got the ability to filter, just like we did on the work order screen. So if I know I want to look for an air filter, I can start typing air filter. And then I can go into those part records. Just like the asset module, we've got all of the part details. We've got some costing information. If those parts are located in particular stock rooms, we're going to be able to see the stock rooms that those are in. And you can also see the quantities within those stock rooms. If I was doing a part count, I could come in, see what parts we have listed in the system, and then make adjustments to those if needed. You've got your vendors tab, just like in the MRO, that shows you providers for the part, and then also any attachments that might be associated with your parts as well. Come over to the MCE application. When you're ready to leave the application, the best option is to go to Menu and use this Logout feature here. What this is going to do is prompt you the first time for a PIN. The value of this is this stores your login information in the browser on the device, so that when you return, you're going to log back in with your PIN, and you're going to notice this login goes way faster than we did the initial sign-in. This also gives you the option to share devices amongst technicians. So I have this login. I can log in another user on the same device. So we could share the device between shifts, different personnel. And this way we're not removing anyone's information from the device. We're just committing the logins to the various pins, storing the multiple logins on each device. So just kind of a review to our login before. That very first time we log in, we want to let that sync spin until it turns blue. Then we know we're safe to move through the application. I'll set another pin for this login. And you'll see when we return to the login screen, we've got multiple users that can log into the application. Let's look at some administrative pieces. So some of the options you're going to see in this configuration screen will only apply to certain users. Everyone will be able to see this My Licenses. This is just telling what you basically have access to within the application. It's rare that anybody will be using this accessibility configuration. That's something our support staff will help you with. Anytime you want to change your login PIN, though, you can use this Set Login PIN option to create a new PIN. The advanced configuration you'll rarely use as well. That's something that will send you some codes every now and then to punch in to turn on and off different things for support purposes. Same for this query engine and the database viewer tool. What everybody will have access, though, to is this retire device feature. And we're going to look at that at the very end of this session. But what retire device does, so the MCE application will allow you to have two devices against a single license. So you can be working on a desktop when you're in an office, and then you can take your device out in the field and sync, and you're getting the same information on both devices. When you want to change devices, this retire device will remove all of the MCE data and sync it back to the server. Now, a couple tools that administrators will want to learn to use are two things. The most important one is this license user permissions tool. And depending on your installation, you're going to see a variation of some of these. What everyone will see is Access Manager, Basic User Login, and Admin Support. You can access those tools without counting against your licensing. And then a typical environment, you're only going to see one of these other numbered licenses. So what I've been using as an example today is this Work Order Technician, Basic Assets and Inventory. So as an administrator, when I click on that, I can see who's been assigned licenses against that license. And it's currently by default, it says every user can access the license. So what that means, we've got 5 licenses available here. What that means is the first 5 people that use the application are going to consume those licenses. Now, if you're in a concurrent license user, you're just going to move in and out. When you're using the application, it's grabbing the concurrent license. When you log out, it'll release that license. But if you've purchased a name license model, you're either going to allow the first number of people to grab those licenses, or you can manually assign those licenses to particular labor records by clicking Add License Permission, searching through your labor records, and assigning them individually. So the way I have this changed, only these two individuals will be able to access the work order and asset license. Once you've established some logins and those licenses have been used, there's an in-use tab here that'll show you who's using those licenses, how many devices they've signed in with, and if you click this folder, it'll show you the actual logins and devices that were being used. From an administrator perspective, we can give you system codes that would then allow you to remove these user licenses if you needed to free them up for someone else. Like say someone leaves your organization, we'd give you a system code, you'd click this red X, and then you would free up a license to assign to a new staff member. The other tools that you may not want to grant access to everyone, so the basic user login is going to take you to the home page, but it won't give you access to these functional modules. But you would leave the basic user login in for anybody that you would want to access online documentation or this configuration menu that we're in. Then the Access Manager license turns on and off these tools. So you would typically only grant that to your administrative users so that they've got access to the License User Permissions tool. And then this final tool that I'm going to show you, which is Access Manager, is where you set preferences for the application. And we'll just use a couple examples for this. Let's say for the work order, I want to look at my work order permissions for my entire organization. From the mobile device, I don't want anyone to be able to close a work order. I only want them to be able to complete it. So I would just uncheck these permissions that I did not want my users to do in the MCE application. And then those permissions will pass on throughout the organization. You can also set those preferences per user. So maybe I only want Amy to have a certain set of actions that she's allowed to perform. So we can set those permissions per user as well. And you can see how these preferences apply to each of the modules throughout the system. So the final thing we'll talk about is that retire device feature. So this is if someone's leaving the organization or they're changing devices. If you don't retire the device, that device is going to consume the license until we either kick them out using the License User Permissions tool or we just manually run this. And you can see here it says this will sync your changes to the server, and then erase all the data from the device. So we'll go ahead and let that run. You'll see I've returned to just my alternate login. The R. Stewart login is now gone. So that sent all of my work orders and released them back to the server. And it now frees up the ability for me to sign in to a different device. Okay, let's take a look at one last component, which is the documentation for the application. It's accessible through your menu, this online documentation. These documents are maintained online on our servers, so they're always current. You can access them from any device. Really, everything you need to know about the application is in here. Logging in information, release notes of what's happening in versions, information about the sync. It's kind of everything we looked at today. And then to access the documents once you're in this module, you have these little PDF icons, and those will open up the documents for you in a new tab. So any questions you have after this demo and any additional information that you need, I recommend just looking through all of these different menu options in the online documentation module. Okay, that's about it for this initial demo of the MCE application. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us at support@maintenanceconnection.ca.